Hi everybody, Mario Francisco Robles, El Fanboy here with you with the official review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now before I get into that review, I want to start things off with an apology. You see, I promised listeners of the El Fanboy podcast earlier this week that I would actually have this review up on Thursday afternoon right before the preview showings of the movie. Unfortunately, I miscalculated ever so slightly because yesterday, Thursday, was actually this young man's third birthday. Come here, Sebastian. Yes, you see, my boy here turned 3, and while I thought I'd be able to sort of balance things out and get you guys a proper video review and give him all the attention he deserves and get things ready for his little birthday gathering that we had, as it turned out, I just didn't have the time. I wanted to just give the whole day to him. So, Sebi, did you have a good birthday?
Yeah.
How old are you?
3.
3? Say hi, everybody. Say hi, everybody.
Bye.
All right, so can Daddy do his review now? Yeah? Okay, Daddy's going to do his review now. So let me just go get him set up in his office now that I've thoroughly apologized for making you wait a day. Technically, I don't think we're late because today's opening day, right? Today's the day the movie opened. So I'm not really late yet, but I did promise you guys yesterday. So just wanted to give you a little explanation as to why. And Sebi, look, show them your t-shirt. What shirt is that?
Batman.
Batman? Are you Batman or Superman?
Batman.
You're Batman? All right. So be it. But anyway, all right, I'm going to go get him ready, and then I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. By the way, I don't know if the mic is sensitive enough to pick this up, but it is raining cats and dogs here in Queens, New York right now. So there's rain, there's thunder. It's very atmospheric around here. I kind of wish I was reviewing a horror movie because it's very spooky. But anywho, all right, so let's get to today's review, shall we? Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I had the delight of checking that out at a press screening in the city on Tuesday. I've had a couple days to really sort of gather my thoughts on it. And I'd like to start right off the bat saying that it's going to be a positive one. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more in theaters than I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. But, you know, it definitely, there are some negatives. So why don't we tackle that first, get the negatives out of the way, and then get to all of the good that James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 had. So first and foremost, on the negative front, Marvel continues to do this thing, all these movies, where they're very anxious about allowing anything to be too serious or too emotional or to take itself too seriously, where they have to undercut every potentially emotional moment, every potential epic sort of moment. They have to undercut it with some sort of one-liner just to sort of take the piss out of it. To me, it feels like they're just self-conscious sometimes. Listen, we don't want you to think that we're taking things too seriously. We know that this is a comic book movie. We know that we're a Disney thing and that this is more of a kid's thing. So don't for a second ever think that we're taking this seriously. And it's just kind of a drag because, there are movies like this one, even Doctor Strange, where, there are moments that could be very serious, that could be very emotional and very goosebump inducing and thought provoking and emotionally resonant. But Marvel, they continue to do this thing where any moment that could come close to that, they got to just pull the rug right out from under it with some sort of shitty one-liner. And it's a perfect example. I'm not going to spoil. By the way, this is a spoiler-free review. I should have made that clear sooner, but spoiler-free. I'll give you a vague example. So imagine, if you will, that there are two characters and you have been dying for them to experience something together, right? And then one of the characters turns to the other and says something like, and that's why I've always loved you. Now I got to go take a piss. And it's and that's the kind of thing that happened a few times in this movie. And it happens a lot in the Marvel movies. Where here's a moment, and it could land, and now I'm going to totally just belittle it and turn it into something light and stupid, and I'm going to go take a piss. And it's come on, come on. I know that we're trying not to take this stuff too seriously, but every once in a while it's okay to like swing for something that hits you in an emotional place. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, just like the first one really, and several of these Marvel flicks, does this thing where it peppers things with so many jokes and so many one-liners that a lot of times it sucks the heart right out of it. And it stings too, because in this movie you can tell there is a lot of heart. There's a lot of stuff that James Gunn wanted to inject this movie with, and ideas and wanted to explore that are very emotional, very heartfelt sort of themes. That's why in a way it's sort of perfect that my son's birthday somehow factored into me getting this review up to you guys, because father-son relationships, family dynamics, being there for one another, giving each other the proper attention that you deserve, and being present and there for one another is one of the overarching themes of the movie. And, you know, it's just kind of funny to me that I had to delay this review because I decided I want to give my son all of me. But, you know, so there are heady ideas in there about Peter Quill and his father and what it means to be a father and what it means to be a dad. And is there a difference between being a dad and being a father? And in general, the dynamic of a family, how you'll fight, but at the underneath it all, there is love and understanding, and how complex our familial bonds can be. So there's a lot of meat on the bones there, but it's so jokey and it's so light, and the movie can be so sort of hokey and childish at times that like the message itself kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And listen, I mean, I guess that's the kind of movie they wanted to make. Just for me, it was sort of a bummer because, you know, I'm someone who has a soft spot for those kinds of themes of family and love, especially father and their children sort of stuff. And so both of these times that I've gone to see a Guardians movie in theaters, I go there ready to give them all of me in an emotional level, and to kind of like go for them on the roller coaster ride and cheer for them when the thrills are happening, but also kind of whip out a hanky when something gets a little sentimental. And they just keep on like battling the sentimentality with shitty jokes, and I'm just kind of like, oh, come on. Aside from that, there's also, you know, a recurring trend in my reviews lately is I point out when there is dialogue that's a little too on the nose. And there's a couple times of that where the characters in this movie outright explain to you exactly what they're thinking or exactly what's going on in the scene, even though the scene itself very perfectly makes that clear for you. And in this one, there's one towards the end that's just so egregious that it actually brings my overall review for the movie down a notch. Not a full letter grade, but we're going to go from a plus to just a square letter, just based on this line there at the end. Again, I'm not going to give you any sort of spoilers, but towards the end of the movie, and by the way, this may help your viewing of it, because as long as you know it's coming, it may not pull you out of it as much as it pulled me out of it. Towards the end of the movie, there's this sort of epic moment that in certain ways both movies have been building towards up until now. Volumes 1 and 2 have been building in some way, shape, or form to this moment. And as the moment is happening, it's perfectly clear what's going on, and it's sort of emotional, and it's a sort of heavy, interesting, complex moment that's had a lot of build to it. And then one of the characters just blurts out exactly what we're all thinking. And it's just like, oh, man, I was feeling it. I was really feeling it. And then you had to spoon feed it to me. And you had to patronize me because you didn't think I, as an audience member, could have pieced all this together. So it's kind of like, you know, it's like when someone tells you a joke and they like beat the punchline over and over again. Like, you get it? You see why that's funny? Like suddenly it's not funny anymore. So same thing in like the emotional scenes and the interesting scenes. As soon as one character blurts out what makes the scene so powerful, the scene is magically not so powerful anymore. And this particular instance is even more, it's made even more painful because in the very next scene, the character who received this information, the character who heard the shitty dialogue, basically reiterates it again. And just for me, anytime something is reiterated over and over again and a point is made too abundantly clear, it loses its power and its emphasis each time. It becomes a copy of a copy of a copy of an emotion instead of the emotion itself. So there is some of that on the nose dialogue, and there's just a little too much of like pulling the rug out from emotional moments. But okay, that's it on the negative front. On the positive front, there's a lot to like here. The visuals are stunning. I mean, to me, this dwarfs Doctor Strange. I bring up Doctor Strange because that was supposedly going to be the big like visual powerhouse for Marvel Studios for a while. I remember when the production designer for Doctor Strange said this movie's going to blow people away. It's going to be like, you know, Marvel's Fantasia, almost like what the Disney cartoon Fantasia was for Disney animation way back when. Doctor Strange was supposedly going to be like that for the Marvel movies. In my mind, this one hits it out of the park. It destroys Doctor Strange on the visual front. James Gunn and his designers have put together a visual feast with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I would even almost say, like, if you go in there and on a slightly elevated frame of mind, if you know what I mean, your brain might ooze out of your ears, because it's just like, I swear that every single color that's ever been created on any palette is in this movie. And just the overall production design, the way everything looks, it pops. And just the overall design is just, it's flawless. And the effects are really, really well done. And obviously in like a sort of sci-fi space epic like this, the visuals are important. And here the visuals are like second to none. Now, in terms of the writing, it's funny. One of the critiques I've heard from other people, including Kelvin at the Splash Report, was that like the plot of the movie was sort of lackluster, or the plot was hard to follow, or lacking in some way. I actually disagree. I mean, yes, the plot is very simple, but in all honesty, movies don't need to have big, crazy plots in order to be good. You know, a perfect example of that I've always thought is like Gravity with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. Like, the actual plot of that movie can be summed up in like 2 sentences. You know, woman gets stranded in space, finds way to return back to Earth, tries to survive. Boom. That's the whole plot of the movie. Nothing really happens, so to speak. But it was a very interesting movie nonetheless, with a lot to say about the character's personal journey. So while the overall story doesn't do a lot, what happens to the characters is very meaningful, and the characters go through a lot. And the same can be said about Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a very straightforward movie. Like the plot is just this. The crew is on a mission. They have to get a thing and return it to some people. Rocket steals some of that thing, so then the people come after them. While they're being hunted down, another person comes and protects the Guardians, and then basically that splits up the team. Half the team ends up with the person who saved them, half the team ends up someplace bad, and then it's just about seeing what happens to the 2 sides of the team. The half that's with the person who saved them, and the half that's off on some other side mission. That's about it. That's pretty much all that happens in the movie. And then it's about them finding their way back to each other and the different discoveries that are made along the way. That's it. That's the whole plot. There's nothing confusing about it, but there's just not much to it. But to me, there's a genius in the way that Gunn sort of paced things and unfolded things. Because what you find out for one, I'm trying to think of a way to bring this up without spoiling it. The setting for one half of our heroes, it's going to totally change on you. There's going to be a sort of reversal of how you feel about things as the movie progresses. And to me, that is the very simple, subtle sort of genius and simplicity of the plot. That it takes something that just seems so like straightforward and sort of like uneventful, and suddenly, before you know it, it's something totally different. So I like the writing of the film. In terms of the humor specifically, I know I was trying to get away from some of the negatives, but I do think it bears stating that a lot of the one-liners, especially early on, feel a little forced this time. Whereas the first Guardians of the Galaxy, there was a lot of this easy rapport and easy chemistry between the characters. This time it feels a little more forced. I remember in the very first scene, there were like 4 rat-tat-tat, one on top of another jokes that all fell flat. Nobody in the theater laughed. I didn't laugh. It just felt like you're pushing here. You're trying. It doesn't feel natural. So for me, my first big laugh didn't come until like maybe 10 minutes into the movie. So there are a lot of like unfortunate one-liners that land with a thud. But aside from that, I found the writing to be very strong. I think a lot of the performances are very, very strong in this movie. Yes, Drax and Mantis steal a lot of the scenes. But there really is a very wonderful, deceptively deep simplicity to the writing. Because like I said, the overall plot itself doesn't do a hell of a lot, but practically every character in the movie transforms right before your very eyes. Some of them, they totally change. Your perception of who they are and what they are will change entirely. For other ones, we're going to peel back the layers and really find out who they are at their core. So, the writing is very, very strong. And that's why even despite what happened there towards the end of the movie, and despite sort of having myself sort of pulled out of it, I still got very emotionally sort of choked up and a little bit weepy there in the very closing minutes. So it just goes to show you that, the story itself may not go very far, but it takes you as an audience member very far, and the characters themselves go through quite a bit. And with regard to like the film's big finale, to me it didn't disappoint. I've gone on record many a time, especially recently, saying how like those big third act finales in these kinds of movies tend to lose me a little bit, because it just becomes all about a million spaceships and people blowing each other up, and it just becomes basically like a cartoon, and I tend to sort of check out. It doesn't really grip me. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 really did grip me. The finale I thought was very masterfully staged. All the character beats were there. The stakes, the emotional, personal stakes for each character was there. The visuals, like I said, were just jaw-dropping. And overall, there was nothing about the finale that felt overstuffed or just thrown in there just for the hell of it. Everything that happens in the film's finale is well-earned. And that's one of the reasons why that line I mentioned earlier really kind of like, oh, it's so unfortunate. Because they earned everything that was happening there so well. And then they kind of, let some of the air out of the balloon. But, the finale's great. And overall, I thought the movie was a lot of fun. And there's plenty more that I would love to talk about here with you today. But since the movie just came out, I don't want to get into spoilers. So I kind of have to leave you here. Because I really can't go any further without getting into spoilers in terms of what I really love to share with you about this film. So that should actually be an incentive for you guys. You should subscribe to the Fanboy podcast, because in 2 episodes from now, I'll have a little spoiler discussion about everything that happened in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Things that involve Ego, the human planet, and things that involve Yondu, and we're going to get into a more spoilerific discussion at another date. So subscribe to the Fanboy podcast. And before I wrap this up, I would also like to just commend James Gunn and company for littering the movie with little surprises and nice little subtle things throughout the movie that, like, if you're a fan of the first one, and you're a fan of Marvel in general, if you're a fan of just good quirky filmmaking, there's lots of great little things that like blink and you miss it things that are callbacks to the first movie, things that are just really inspired casting, things that are just going to jolt you as an audience as an audience member. There's a lot of just the movie brims with energy. There's so much going on that it almost tries to like overwhelm you sometimes. It's a kind of like, Peter Quill likes to reference things from the 80s a lot. So I feel like this is a good, timely reference for Guardians of the Galaxy. Almost everything about it is dialed up to 11. Everything is dialed up to 11. So yeah, there's so much energy. There's so many little surprises. Everything moves so quickly and so briskly that even like the lines of dialogue that are a little bit clunky, we get, before you can fully react to that, we're already onto something else. The movie really just moves, and throws a lot at you. So it really is a very fun, night out at the movies. I definitely recommend it. I don't know how it stacks up for those of you who adored the first one. I didn't adore the first one. For me, the other one, the first one was like a B or B minus. And this one, my official grade for Guardians Volume 2 is B. Just a flat B. I was going to go B+. I was really digging it until that character said that thing that just, for me, totally crushed what was a very beautiful moment that was happening on the screen. And yeah, guys, I think that's it. All right. So the review from El Fanboy is B. And that's it. Check out Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 in theaters everywhere.